Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinode Ki Jai. This is, we just finished reading through the 7 chapters of Chaitanya Shikshamrta by Bhaktivinode Thakur, and it was first reading, so it's kind of like reading through the first time, kind of overviewing everything, and it was a lot of very detailed information there. And so now this is a little section at the end of the book called the summary. It's the summary, and so we're going to read that. It's a short little section. So this is the summary. This book is meant to delineate Vaishnava philosophy and theology, not to convey the experience of bhakti and ras. In that case, it would simply suffice to describe the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, the embodiment of Madhurya Ras. There are plenty of books written on these matters, but the subject of those books is a matter of tasting. The learned have concluded that there are 5 components in deliberation: subject, doubt, reconciliation, opposition, and conclusion. So what is the subject of this book? The subject of deliberation is the life of the spirit soul. What is the doubt? The doubt is, what is life and what is life's goal? The reconciliation is as follows. Life is of 2 types, pure life and conditional life. Pure life exists in the spiritual world. It is eternal, pure, and full of bliss. There's no deficiency, no lamentation, no fear, and no death. Conditional life exists in the material world. It has 2 types, grossly material, bahirmukha, and spiritually inclined, antarmukha. Grossly material life does not take interest in spiritual realm, but rather turns in the opposite direction. Spiritually inclined life appears similar to gross material life, but gives direct respect to the spiritual realm. Grossly material conditioned souls are of 4 types. Without morality, without belief in God. With morality, without belief in God. With morality and with belief in God. With belief in an impersonal God. Life without morality or God has 2 divisions, non-human life and human life. Animals, birds, fish constitute non-human forms. In those non-human forms of life, power of intelligence is almost absent. In the human forms, without morality or God, intelligence is also almost absent. This may be represented by primitive forest tribes, which, like animals, carry out action according to immediate desire. Impelled by fear and desire, they take various glittering objects, such as the sun and the moon, as their gods. There's no moral code, no real belief in God. The quality of bhakti, present in the perfect state of the soul, is almost absent, being represented only by possession of the human form. When man gains knowledge of matter and material energy, he can progress in arts and sciences using his intelligence. By this he creates happiness for his senses, but he has no respect for morality or God. He is the 2nd type of immoral, atheistic human being, having no regard for ethics or God. When the human being then develops regard for moral laws, he reaches the 2nd stage of human life. When this life becomes combined with faith in God, man attains the 3rd stage of life. However, since the obligation to God is subservient to his moral codes, that faith does not remove his material tendency. When man attains the stage of thinking of the goal in terms of impersonal liberation and molds his life on this concept, he loses morality, and gradually faith in God turns into faith in absolute monism. This stage, material existence based on distorted concepts of impersonalism, is the fourth stage of conditional life. When man accepts the Supreme Lord as the all-in-all of life, makes all science, arts, morality, thoughts, and philosophies of God subordinate to devotion to the Lord, though still materially conditioned, he's called spiritually inclined. Living in this way, he's called a sadhana bhakta. The final goal of life is to be situated in spiritual ras, in one's own pure nature, after the destruction of endless material bondage, and that's the result of spiritually inclined life. Hearing this reconciliation, people situated in each of the four stages of material life will raise their respective objections. Actually, each of these types of people, utilizing their intelligence, have considered a subject, doubt, reconciliation, objection, and come to their individual conclusions. Those conclusions are raised here as the opponent's view or objection. The principle operating here is that each stage of life will defeat the objections raised by the next lower stage and establish a new conclusion. By mentioning the new conclusion, it is understood that the previous conclusion has been defeated. The work here is to defeat the views of life which are considered inferior. The various conclusions of these lifestyles have been presented in the book, but they will now be summarized and reviewed again. The man without morals thinks in the following way. The variegated universe is formed by the union and separation of atoms, according to the beginningless laws of material nature. There's no creator. Any faith in the Lord is simply superstitious. If there were a necessity of some form of great creator, then that creator would also need to have a creator. Therefore, belief in a creator has no foundation. Intelligence arises by the working of the material brain in the material body. When this action stops, the intelligence no longer exists. Belief in a soul is blind faith. When the body dies, existence ends or merges in primal matter. A person should not therefore try to enjoy himself. A person should therefore try to enjoy himself as much as possible as long as the body is alive, remembering as well to avoid those acts which will give futile trouble in this life itself. These troubles are imprisonment, execution, death of other living entities, like in war, mutual animosity, sickness, and infamy. Bodily pleasure is necessary because there's nothing beyond that. In order to increase physical pleasure, everyone should make physical and mental efforts to make as much progress as possible. Art, science, industry. Leave aside the forest life. Increase the glamour of body, furniture, house, and clothing. Enjoy more by creating delicious food, fragrant perfumes, cosmetics, sweet-sounding musical instruments, vehicles, beautiful artworks, enticing beds. Increase beauty by building attractive palaces and ride in a variety of automobiles. The excellence of man is his sophistication. Collate history for the benefit of living now. All the discoveries made by research must be preserved. Do not believe in anything extraordinary or illogical. Where there is a conflict between general happiness and individual happiness, sacrifice general happiness for one's own benefit. On hearing such strong statements, the uncivilized and innocent primitive peoples give up their previous mode of action and begin to improve their life. Belief in the power of the sun and moon, maintaining themselves by hunting, spending their time in the forest like animals, becomes forgotten. In this way, the immoral, intelligent materialist becomes proud. Charvaka and Sardanesplosa are examples of people who advocate a life of sense pleasure. The moral materialist, being more intelligent, can easily defeat immoral materialist. He says, "Oh, brother, I respect what you say, but I cannot accept your self-motivated actions. They're not at all good. You're seeking out happiness in life, but without morals, how can there be happiness? You do not think that your life is everything? Consider society as well. Rules which can increase the happiness of the human being in society are advisable. This is called morality. Gaining happiness through morality makes man superior to animals. It's necessary for man to accept individual suffering where it will give happiness to society. That's called selfless morality, and it's the only path for man. You must cultivate all the positive sentiments such as love, friendship, compassion, in order to increase the overall happiness of society. By doing this, violence, hatred, and other evil tendencies will not be able to contaminate the heart. Universal love is universal happiness. Take up ways of increasing this happiness. Positivists like Comte and Mill, and socialists such as Herbert Spencer, as well as lay Buddhists and atheists, firmly believe this philosophy. Moralists worshipping a fictitious God accept the same philosophy, but they add, belief in God is also a principal moral duty. Morality can never be perfect until man has faith in God. Belief in God clearly contributes to moral standards in the following ways. 1. Even with a strong sense of morality, sometimes the attraction of sense objects is so strong that even great moralists are defeated. If the opportunity arises to enjoy immorality in secret, belief in God will act as a preventative measure. God can see what man cannot. If man thinks like that, he'll not be able to perform acts contrary to morality in secret. Number 2, by having belief in God, man can die peacefully due to happiness born of his faith. 3, everyone will accept that faith in God produces greater tendency to perform pious acts than morality alone. 4, the life of a moralist with faith in God is more peaceful than that of a person with morals alone. 5, if God actually does exist, then by faith in him so much is gained. If he does not exist, there's no harm in believing. On the other hand, if God does exist, it's detrimental not to have faith in him. Therefore, a true moralist must have faith in God. 6, there is happiness in worshiping the Lord, and that happiness is purer than other happiness. There's always some disturbance in material happiness, but the happiness derived from worship of the Lord is devoid of disturbance. 7, by belief in God, the tendency toward righteousness in the mind grows very quickly. 8, by faith in God, compassion and tolerance become stronger. 9, by belief in God, there is more eagerness to perform selfless action. 10, by belief in God, acceptance of afterlife arises. When this arises, man cannot be disappointed by any event in life. Oh, brother, even if God does not exist, for the above reasons and many others as well, it's necessary to believe in some form of God. Seeing all the direct results of worship of God, the atheist is defeated by the pseudo-theist, and like Comte, they accept some worshipable object. Though there are differences between Jaimini's Karmakanda, Patanjali's meditation on God, and Comte's fictitious worship, the result is the same. Comte has expressed himself clearly on these points, whereas Jaimini and other proponents of karma are more cautious and do not reveal their minds. When the pseudo-theist becomes strong, the genuine theist comes forth and challenges him. Oh, brother, do you not think that God is simply an imaginary device? Do not think that God is simply an imaginary device. He actually exists. Consider the following reasons. 1, because of the perfect laws observed in the universe, there can be no doubt that a supreme intelligence has created it and is maintaining it. The power of reasoning is the best quality in man. When that power of reasoning is operating correctly, truth is discovered. Sometimes, by neglecting details, error occurs. In operation of logic, proper concomitance is necessary. Without that, logic cannot proceed very far. In trying to come to a conclusion, two elements of the syllogism, process of reasoning, must be valid. For instance, a person may conclude there's a fire on the mountain on seeing smoke there. First, the statement, where there is smoke, there is fire, must be valid. Secondly, what appears to be smoke must be real smoke. If these two elements of the syllogism are correct, the conclusion, there's a fire on the mountain, must be true. This is the process of logical inference. Beauty and perfect arrangement are observed in the workings of the universe, is one element. The other element is, whatever occurs by chance does not have perfect arrangement. Perfection can only be produced by a conscious entity with intelligence. From these two elements, it may be correctly concluded, some great conscious entity has created this universe. 2. No activity occurs without a doer. Someone may propose that that doer must also have its source. However, this argument is valid only in relation to matter. A form is conceived by the intellect, and this is transformed into action in the material world. The original doer or mover of matter is a conscious entity. As we do not see any mover of intellect beyond this, what is the necessity of insisting on another doer? By incorrect concomitants produced through the habit of material vision, a person searches for a doer behind the conscious entity. Give up this bad habit and with pure logic take faith in the Lord. Number 3. If consciousness arises by some special process through combination of atoms, there should be some evidence of this somewhere in the universe. There should be some example of this in human history. Man is produced from the womb of a mother. Nowhere is any other process observed. In spite of the growth of science, nothing otherwise has yet been observed. Someone may argue that man has arisen by chance combination of matter, and later man has adopted his particular process of birth from the womb. However, the succeeding events would be similar to the first event. Even now we should observe at least a few conscious entities arising by chance combination of matter. Therefore, it can only be logically concluded that the first mother and father must have arisen from supreme consciousness. Number 4. Wherever man exists, belief in God also exists. Therefore, belief in God is a basic attribute in the character of man. Someone may object that faith in God exists in the primitive stage of human life, and by the advancement of knowledge, this is eradicated. Error is not of one variety, but truth is always one. For instance, 10 plus 10 equals 20. This is the same in all countries and all places because it's truth. The statement 10 plus 10 equals 25, being a false total, is not common to the whole world. Belief in God exists even in the inhabitants of the most remote islands. Objection to this universal phenomena, which arises simply from the prejudices of material education, cannot be considered. It's absolutely necessary for man to accept God and afterlife if he wants to raise his position as a human being. If a man has only a few days to live, he cannot have much hope and aspiration. Man fulfills his higher aspirations, hopes, and ambitious goals to the degree that faith in God naturally manifests in his character. Men devoid of faith in God have insignificant purpose in life. Number 6. If faith in God based on sound reasoning and gratitude in the form of following his orders is absent, then real worship of the Lord, which is the main item of morality, also becomes absent. By this absence, the life of man becomes imperfect, and in the absence of basic obligations, life becomes sinful. By logically deriving conclusions in this way, knowledge will increase, and in the shelter of this knowledge, life will advance in the spheres of science, arts, morality, and faith in God, and the whole world will benefit. This will give you peace and happiness after death. Those processes which reject the existence of God cannot offer you happiness after death. O brother, you have offered your hopes to an imaginary God, but a real God can offer you benefit thousands of times greater. It is necessary to cultivate knowledge of science, arts, morality, and God, but this cultivation is of two types, improper and proper. Improper cultivation refers to cultivation performed at the wrong time, in the wrong way, without considering one's own qualification. A person should practice according to his qualification. If he does more or less, the proper result will not manifest. Qualification is according to one's nature. Nature arises due to original circumstance, teachings, and association. When you take support of the scientific system of Varnashram, of Bharata, after discerning your qualification, you will perfect your activities and attain the final goal. Please understand, your soul is deathless through logic and intrinsic faith. Then your life in Vaidhi Bhakti will be perfect in all respects. Though you appear to have arisen from your mother's womb, by transcendental knowledge and advanced methods, raise and embellish that self to a higher existence. You existed before this birth, and after this life you will exist. Without such conviction, your faith in God will not be pure. Some person, being born in a family of devotees, naturally becomes a devotee. Another person, taking birth in a materialist family, will likely be a materialist. Thereafter, the teachings and association may be favorable or unfavorable. When the person attains full intellectual capacity, his nature becomes fixed. According to that nature, the person does his activities, since in one lifetime all results of action must be received. One person will go to heaven and another to hell. Is this the proper work of the all-merciful, all-discerning Lord? Those religions which accept one lifespan for all activity are imperfect and unreasonable. Do not be limited by these religions. Recognize the elevated nature of the soul. Taking shelter of Varnashram Dharma, you'll be happy. It is necessary to perform work according to scriptural injunctions. This work is of two types, with desire and without desire. You should not be attracted to work which directly strengthens the sense of enjoyment. Desireless work is obligatory. In doing such work, there's no desire, even if it yields sense pleasure, for desire refers to self-interest. In performing work as a matter of duty, there's no desire or kama. By this work, the Lord is satisfied. When the Lord is satisfied, both material satisfaction and liberation are possible. With this solid reasoning, a person should establish himself in Varnashram Dharma and live a life of theistic morality. At this stage, he begins the serious attempt to discover the goal of human life. He begins to consider the relation of soul and God. After coming to a conclusion, however, the real question is not yet solved, and the person then asks, who am I? What is my relation to the world? What is my relation to God? What is my final position? There are three types of reconciliation to the doubt raised: action for one's own happiness, annihilation of one's self-interest in impersonal knowledge, and bhakti, the cultivation of the soul's inherent nature. The theistic moralist supporting the first solution will say, I am an infinite soul, controlled by dharma and adharma, and always desiring happiness. I have a relation with the universe as enjoyer of the enjoyed. There is one portion of the material world which is the essence of pure enjoyment. I'll go there and attain perfect happiness. My relation to the Lord is this. The Lord's the creator, and I'm the created. The Lord is the bestower, and I'm the receiver. The Lord's the maintainer, and I'm the maintained. The Lord is the protector, I'm the protected. The Lord is the powerful, I'm the weak. The Lord is the destroyer, I can be destroyed. The Lord is the lawmaker, I'm the follower of the laws. The Lord's the judge, I'm the judged. If the Lord is pleased, my suffering disappears. I have the possibility of attaining happiness. Performance of yoga is also included in this solution. Samadhi is the goal, and the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, dhyana, and dharana are its constituent steps. Pratyahar is the mode for attaining results. Samadhi is the destroyer of suffering and the cause of happiness. In the second solution, a person gives up theistic morality and progresses to impersonal conceptions. I am a knowing object. Brahman is a knowing object. I am a portion of Brahman. Anything material must be avoided. Matter is the opposite of Brahman. I am Brahman, but by illusion I'm thinking I'm an individual soul. There's nothing except Brahman. Whatever I see as matter is due to ignorance. By thinking of myself as Brahman, I will attain impersonal Brahman. This is the final goal of the individual. In the third solution, the theistic moralist says, I'm actually spiritual, but only a particle of spirit. The Lord is the Supreme Spirit. The material world's not false, or it's just not false or illusory. The concept of I, which I hold in this world, is due to my weakness of knowledge. I'm eternally the servant of the Lord. My relation with the world is temporary, and this relation has arisen due to the desire of the Lord. As I decrease my opposition to the Lord, my attraction for the spiritual realm will grow. My real, eternal position is to realize myself as the servant of the Lord. By cultivating this relationship, as a secondary result, I attain liberation from the material world, and as a primary, eternal result, I attain prema. My eternal relationship with the Lord is that of servant and served. Whoever becomes bound to the first solution takes karma as the chief means and establishes the Lord as a limb of karma. The result has no eternal qualities, and that solution is not without faults. There is no display of the independence of the Lord in their life. Dependence on rule predominates. Such persons are called karmis. Whoever becomes bound by the second solution aims at destruction of the self and performs false renunciation. He neither establishes himself in this world, nor does he finally attain a stable, non-material position. By accepting negative thought patterns, he renders his life useless. Such persons are called jnanakandis. Those who are bound by the first solution, sangati, will accept the third solution as the opponent's view, purvapaksha. Taking shelter of bhakti, you regard all material happiness as insignificant, and our goal of attaining happiness on Swarga or elsewhere is detestable. By renouncing everything from Brahma to the immovable entities, you give up working for the progress of the world. You reject the world altogether. But this world is our field of activity. By performing acts dear to the Lord, I attain happiness in this and the next life. By negating all of this, you impede the attainment of everyone's happiness. The devotee replies as follows and supplies the conclusion. O brother, though there is nothing of particular importance for the soul to attain in this world, if you examine the life of the devotee, you will see whatever good is possible for this world is attained only by actions of the devotee. Do whatever you can in the realms of science, art, crafts, and morality. I do not object to those activities. Rather, such things also provide facility for the cultivation of bhakti. The devotees are not dry renunciates, but rather enjoyers of bliss. I accept all actions which are pleasing to the Lord. Please, do not perform action with the motive of selfish happiness, with only a secondary result, but perform all actions for increasing devotion to the Lord. There is only a slight difference between you and I in the matter of action. The difference is, however, that you perform work with a sense of duty, and I perform work with a feeling of serving the Lord. I may reduce some of those actions as they're not suitable, but this is not the same as negligence to perform duty in your mode of life. You may stop your duties for no good reason, but I neglect those duties because of devotion to the Lord. For you, the world is a field of activity. For me, it is a field of performing acts of devotion. I understand that all your actions are actually material. You are a theistic moralist, karmi, and I am a devotee, servant of God. The actions of a devotee and a theist moralist are in many places identical, but according to the faith, the nature of the actions is different. As the actions of the theist moralist are not aiming at anything beyond matter, they are despicable. Though he respects the Lord, he does not accept the spiritual form of the Lord or the final destination of the soul. He cannot get deliverance from the wheel of karma. When the theist moralist realizes the insignificance of the material world and tries to attain liberation from the bondage of karma, he sees three possible ways to accomplish this. 1. One should gradually give up attraction for material karma, become fixed in spiritual truth. 2. One should offer all action of material results to Vishnu, the Supreme Spirit. In performing karmas, one should think of the pleasure of Vishnu. After performing the karma, offer the results to Krishna. 3. All obligatory karma should be done with devotion to Krishna. Those duties which, not performing, in no way obstruct normal existence, should be rejected. Those who accept the first path are yogis or ascetics. The ascetics try to loosen the knot of karma by undergoing great difficulties. The Vedic process includes Pancha Agni Vidya and Nididhyasana. Different types of yoga like Astanga Yoga, Sadanga Yoga, Dattatreya Yoga, and Gorakshanati Yoga have been prescribed. Among them, Hatha Yoga and Patanjali's Raja Yoga are highly esteemed in the world. The Astanga Yoga of Patanjali is chief. The person must first practice yama, nonviolence, truth, no stealing, celibacy, and not accepting from others. Then he practices niyama, cleanliness, satisfaction, austerity, study, meditation on God. By doing this, he gives up all bad actions and becomes habituated to good actions. He then practices postures, then breath control. Having controlled his breath, he concentrates on a form of Vishnu and then fixes the mind steadily on Vishnu. Before the meditation, however, the mind must be withdrawn from all sense objects. When the mind has become motionless, samadhi is attained. The main intent of this process is to become free of karma by practicing rejection. However, it is a slow process and has many obstacles. Those who maintain the second method think that whatever material thing a person desires should be dedicated to the pleasure of Vishnu and then offered to Krishna. However, this act is contrary to nature. Can a heart moved by material pleasure naturally decide to please Vishnu? If he does this for show, it cannot be regarded as a sincere attempt. It is only meant to deceive the mind. Devotion for Vishnu, of all the women who worship Annapurna in order to have enough food in future lives, is simply words. It goes without saying that it's not possible to attain liberation from material bondage by such offerings. The third means is correct, because it involves action, which corresponds to what actions the mind. There's a lot of grammatical errors in this typing here, so sometimes these sentences don't make sense. Try that again. The third means is correct, because it involves action, which is what corresponds to what attracts the mind. If a person is attracted to delicious food, he can eat food which has been offered to the Lord. By doing this simultaneously, he will cultivate his attraction to the Lord and satisfy his material attachment. By tasting the higher pleasure, very quickly the lower taste will transform into the higher taste. This is classed as secondary bhakti, but is still distinct from karma. Although karma is present in the desire for a result, it is still possible to destroy karma itself in this process. When all bodily and mental actions act according to this secondary devotion, then they become subordinate to secondary bhakti, and then they serve the real bhakti. Those theistic moralists who have taken this inclination become devotionally inclined. All other theist moralists are still materially engaged. In defeating all the opposing views, purvapaksha, bhakti becomes established as the only practical method. Bhakti is the highest attainment for man. It does not contradict the progress of society or the welfare of the living entities. It bestows the inherent eternal peace and bliss to the soul. Bhakti is the way of life for the human being. It is perfect and all auspicious. It is the only spiritual thing in the material world. By cultivating sadhana bhakti, the devotee attains the stage of bhav and finally prem. Then the sweet and majestic Lord, the abode of Lakshmi, opens his storehouse of ras and says, "O friend, I have been carefully holding this storehouse for you. You alone have rights to it. Rejecting me, you fell under the spell of my energy of illusion. Continuous, I have shown great regard for you. As you have attained this by your own efforts, I am extremely pleased. Serve my ever-fresh, pleasurable form. Play with me in the endless ocean of bliss. Do not fear, do not lament, for you have attained eternal life of bliss. For me, you have cut all chains of material attachment. I will not be able to repay the debt of love you have shown. Be naturally satisfied in your service." To those who reject the nectarine instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and take up other teachings, Rishabdev has given the following instructions in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, 5th chapter. Keep this instruction in your mind. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipful demigod. And that is having completed the 7 chapters and the summary of Chaitanya Shikshamrta on the first reading. Hare Krishna.